fans of all ages, newly initiated and obsessive diehards alike, it's fun and all to remember fondly the glory days once upon a time when we saw films about Earth's mightiest heroes on the big screen. But I hate to be the bearer of bad news to you all. It ain't coming back. And the quality of the Infinity Saga is never going to come back unless severe changes are made. However, there are some folks that have said that Marvel is finally back with Thunderbolts, even though those same folks have said the same thing about Deadpool and Wolverine, and Daredevil Born Again, and Guardians 3. So here's the honest truth, ladies and gentlemen. Anytime somebody tells you that Marvel is finally back, they're lying to themselves. The reality of the situation, Marvel is still forgetting their world building and established canon in prior projects, rewriting their own characters into shadows of their former selves, and have lowered storytelling standards as deep as the Mariana Trench. Unfortunately, audiences will still swallow up this mindless drivel as if it's the second coming, even though they'll probably forget about everything they just saw and then move on to the next product of slop made by the cinematic franchise that used to be quite reliable to Hollywood, keeping business afloat. Not only being heavily acclaimed, but making so much money for the industry. It's like watching the current day National Football League. Sure, the commissioner is terrible and the rules are getting softer and worse by the day, but fans will still devour the sludge no matter what they say and pretend that football is back to their glory days, despite paling in comparison to past eras. Audiences asked for more super trash, and with Thunderbolts, with an asterisk, that is exactly what they got. It's a subpar, lower than mediocre, Dirty Dozen superhero escapade, arranged of the same inane decision-making as we've seen before in previous Marvel movies, that it just makes you wonder, how do people think that this movie is even good? Yelena, Black Widow's adopted sister, is sent by CIA Director Valentina Allegra de Fontaine to take out a target heading to a hidden top-secret Ox facility. But when she gets there, she gets into a scuffle with many Marvel characters: Ghost, Dreykov's daughter known as Taskmaster, and the pillar of all things patriotic, US agent, also known as John freaking Walker. After an intense shootout, they all realized that they're all a part of Fontaine's plan to hide her tracks during her impeachment trial. But except it's not actually an impeachment trial, it's just a removal from office, but hey, what do I know? I'm not the filmmaker. She planned to destroy them along with the evidence and her involvement of an unethical human experiment called the Century Project. Her way of basically making her very own superhero. With the help of Alexei, Bucky Barnes, and a socially awkward reserved test subject named Bob, our group must stop Valentina before things go wrong really fast. Now, a lot of folks out there think that this movie is really well written. I don't know how they could possibly say that without turning their brain off, because when you dissect and examine the specimen as is, the film is so reliant on coincidences and conveniences that if anything were to happen differently, given the context of what we know about the characters, the entire plot would be non-functional. If she wanted to hide her affiliation with the superhuman experiment and exterminate those working for her, why would her plan be to assign her CIA assets to try and kill each other in this covert Ox facility and then burn down all the evidence while our heroes are in the midst of their squabble? There are so many alternative plans that she could have used in order to accomplish her goal. Putting poison in their drinks without them knowing, betraying them unpredictably while on a mission. In fact, she could have incinerated the evidence right now before they even got there. But because the filmmakers want to raise the stakes, they decided that the incinerator in this Ox facility needed a 2-minute timer before it begins. That's right, there is a 2-minute timer for the incinerator to destroy the evidence for no reason whatsoever, which gives our heroes enough time to find the power source, disable it, and escape. That is how lazy this movie is. A character just so happens to be listening to the villain's plan without her recognizing his identity. And characters just so happen to figure out where people are going at the right place at the right time. Speaking of characters, they are very well established. If you've never seen any Marvel projects they were in before. But for guys like me and many other people who have to complete the homework given by Kevin Feige's cinematic universe, a majority of the protagonists are either written inconsistently from how we saw them, fundamentally wasted, or could have been written out of this film entirely. And yes, a lot of the actors performing their parts, Florence Pugh, David Harbour, Wyatt Russell, do an extraordinary job. It's just the material that weighs them down. Rather than going back to how she was in Black Widow, the film decides to take Yelena down a path towards depression, which is an interesting choice, and there are many things that you can do with this. That being said, lore-wise, I don't know why her hearing about the fact that her sister saved her life from the snap would drive her to suicide. When in Black Widow, she acted perfectly fine whenever she's discussing traumatic experiences when she was under Dreykov's mind control, and she found solace and closure when confronted with the truth about her sister's death in Hawkeye. If anything, I think her finding out how her sister died in Hawkeye would have actually motivated her rather than feeling apathetic and empty. Though with how lonely she is, having very few family left, I could possibly see how that is the case. But if the movie wants to present to us that she is really depressed, wouldn't it make sense for the film to have her avoid Alexi's messages and calls? Since the thing with depression is that one of the key signs is avoidance. There's so much that could have been done to enhance the drama, and there are moments that shine between Alexi and Yelena. It's just that the film doesn't do enough to explore any of these ideas that we will talk about later, and she results to blaming Alexi for being a bad father figure, because the film can't have Yelena make a mistake or be held responsible for anything to challenge her. In fact, I'm surprised that she's still willing to work for Valentina and trust her when she, lied about Clint Barton killing Natasha Romanoff, her sister. The idea that Yelena is still willing to take a job from Valentina when she bold-faced lied to her about her sister's death is just plain absurd. Now, to touch on father figures, back in Black Widow, Alexei, also known as the Red Guardian, was a very competent figure who stood beside Dreykov, who was also kind of a monster because he trafficked girls for Dreykov, who was eventually stripped down to being a comedic oaf and the punching bag of the cast. What Thunderbolts has done now is essentially make him an absentee slob and the butt of most jokes. The first time we see him, Yelena criticizes him for not checking up on her to see if she isn't having a bad day or if she's depressed. Like I said before, I guess it's just there to highlight how much of a bad father figure he is, when isn't that one of the big arcs that he had in Black Widow? Him proving that he did care about his pretend daughters when they were little, and that he worked hard to try and redeem himself to find a new lease on life by becoming a stand-up father figure for Yelena. But since the film doesn't have enough time for that, let's have him be humiliating to Yelena and make constant jokes that do not really land at all. As for the rest of the squad, a lot of them are given such little material that you ask yourself, why are you even here? Ghost, who we haven't seen since Ant-Man and the Wasp, is best described as a plot device. She's a character that solely exists to do things so we can continue on with the rest of the story, and the film doesn't even bother to give an inkling of character development. Bucky Barnes is still being played by Sebastian Stan, who honestly couldn't be more disinterested in this, and the story gives him nothing to do outside of carrying over his plotline from Captain America Brave New World of him being a congressman. And Taskmaster, don't even bother. She has one line, takes part in one action scene, and then she's gone. And how the movie handles her exit from the film, well, it did surprise me. Not in a positive way, but it did surprise me. And finally, I have to ask Marvel this one lonely question. Why do you hate John Walker so much? What is your deal with him? The best character in both Phases 4 and 5 combined. What is your freaking problem with him? Well, the writers seem to have noticed that the showrunners of Falcon and the Winter Soldier failed to portray him as this evil, awful, irredeemable man that he was meant to be. Instead, they accidentally made him into a solid, upstanding soldier and a overall good person. Instead, they accidentally made him into an upstanding, admirable soldier and an overall good person. Almost everything he did, while shown as wrong given the manipulative shots and music, was actually the right thing to do. He kept proving he was the best choice to be Captain America while being constantly disrespected and left for dead by Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes. This time, the writers of this movie clearly show their bias against him. Aside for doing something completely out of character for him to do to save our protagonist's lives, he spends most of the movie being right, only to get ridiculed and mocked for it, turning him into a joke. In one instance, he highlights that Yelena's plan of creating an explosion to distract the soldiers as a way to escape causes way too many variables and things could get out of hand way too quickly. And of course, that's exactly what happens, because when the explosion happens, the power grid goes off, and she isn't able to do what she always wanted to do. So John Walker takes it upon himself to defeat all of the soldiers by himself to save everyone's lives. And he still gets shat on for being competent and heroic. He does everything right only to be told he's inept. Like, great stuff, Marvel. And even in a backstory sequence, he gets harped on by his wife about not watching the baby in the crib when the crib is literally 1 foot away from him. All the while he's reading a news article on his phone about his downfall of being a superhero. Despite the fact that he saved innocent lives, such as the GRC representatives, he was discharged with his pension money being taken away from him and given no chance to explain himself as to what happened in Lafayette, especially when he had his shield stolen by Sam and Bucky, and the fact that he killed a flag smasher terrorist, one affiliated to a global threat, and took part in attacking and killing innocent people, including his own friend Lamar Hoskins. Oh yeah, about that, Ghost criticized John Walker by stating that the man or the terrorist that he killed, he was actually a terrorist, don't be mistaken, the terrorist that he killed was an innocent man. I don't think I need to state how much that line pissed me off, so we're just gonna move on to the next bit. To finish off this review, there is an aspect of this movie that really irks me. It's the execution, which has to do with the thematic element of trauma, depression, loneliness, and abuse. And with a topic like this, you have to be very careful with how you handle the subject matter. How Thunderbolts handles the murky, dreary territory of trauma and mental health doesn't land as well as it should. Sometimes a bunch of the scenes in which the characters exchange their traumatic circumstances with each other, it's incredibly flippant and it isn't taken seriously. It's often served to fuel witty banter between the characters just to see who suffered the worst, or ruined by the joke at the end, destroying the tone altogether. When it isn't being facetious, the film is incredibly overt with what they are trying to address to the audience, as if they couldn't figure out for themselves that someone is contemplating suicide or dealing with depression or abuse, and uses metaphorical conflicts in order to dumb things down and simplify it all down to, you know what, having friends by your side and talking about what you're going through, that's what's gonna make the trauma go away. When in reality, that's not how it is in the real world. It's much more complicated than that. On top of that, the film introduces Lewis Pullman as Bob, who we later find out, this is not a spoiler, this is in the trailer, that he is the superhuman Sentry. And to give credit to the actor, he does a very good job embodying a frightened, innocent test subject while over time manifesting into a world-ending force. Before he was a lab rat and became the Marvel version of Superman, he was a young man who has gone through significant hardships in his life, struggles with mental health, child abuse, and drug addiction. And once he figures out what his true potential could be, and he transforms into his corrupted version of himself, which is the Void, you would have to think to yourself that, man, not only do I feel sorry for him, but there is nothing that our heroes can do to stop him. there is simply no way it's over. Well, when you get to the climax of the film, it's basically a metaphorical superhero version of a therapy session where the heroes all get together to comfort him and hug him, and it all makes everything perfectly fine, only to waste the audience's time and investment that they had for this character by making him completely drop all of his development and revert back to square one. I can't believe that they would take this character who has been characterized as a victim who has gone through severe trauma and child abuse, only for them to completely drop the ball and make him not only lose his powers, but make him forget everything that he did. Completely losing his memory. Like, what a waste of my and everyone else's time. Guys, we're not even close to being back with Thunderbolts. There's good performances, some good shots to be had, and you know, there are a few scenes that I liked, but all in all, it's a formulaic waste of time that is only made worse by the fact that this movie should have been good. But with projects like this being dispersed by Marvel today, the concept of future projects being good are out of the realm of possibility. Oh, and you're probably wondering why there is an asterisk next to their title. I won't spoil it for you, but when you see the movie, it's super, super dumb. Just saying. My name is Luke Nukem, and you, my friends, have been blown away.